The second book, Man, is a part of a three-part trilogy written by Tom DeLonge and Peter Levenda. The trilogy is called Gods, Man, and War. And the reason this is so important to Tom's story is that recently in an interview, Tom said that someone had built a pyramid twice the size of the pyramid in Giza underground outside of Valdez, Alaska, and that scientists have not only been studying it for decades, but that they think they know what it's doing. It's turned on and it's suppressing consciousness. And if you think about it, if it's true that there's a pyramid underground in Alaska twice the size of Giza, that was probably built by the gods. Whomever or whatever they are and represent, that's the purpose of Tom identifying them in gods. Man, of which this is the book that I like to point to next, Man is actually focused on who are we? What are we made of? What is humankind as an entity, as a life form? What do we represent? And what people haven't really seemed to have figured out much, because nobody's talking about it, is that we are the secret machines. Our bodies are the secret machines. And when Tom says that our consciousness is being suppressed, he means that the gods are using technology to control and manipulate the secret machines on the earth. Now, if that isn't worth sticking around and hearing not only how the pyramid is electrically functioning, but how we turn it off, if you don't want to know that, you don't really know what's going on in your world. Because what's going on in your world today is some strange shit. And if it's not true, this story will make great fiction. Welcome to Disclosure 37, Decoding DeLonge's Alaskan Pyramid.
Some crazy shit.
Tell me some crazy shit. I was born in Longview, Washington, moved to Alaska when I was 6 months old, and I was there till I was 18. I did not know that.
There's a pyramid and it's underground. Yeah,
Where?
it's bigger than Giza. It's not that far from Valdez, I believe. And I know a very important person that from the Pentagon that met with one of the lead defense contractors that were studying it, and they said, we think we finally know what it's doing. It's all turned on. We think it's suppressing consciousness. That's what he said.
What the hell?
Fucking wild. I know,
Dude.
wild, right?
Tom's acknowledgement of the pyramid is the first most, including myself, had ever heard of it. Why put a pyramid underground around Valdez, Alaska? The answer begins with 2 triangles and 2 circles. Oh, and a dragon. All of which formed in the Venus cataclysm. Keep your eye on this thing right here, which again is Valdez, Alaska. The first triangle is located perfectly in the center of the first circle, and it is called a delta, as shown in the diagram of the circuit here. Watch as I expand the circle out symmetrically from the center, and suddenly the second circle becomes very apparent. And here in the middle of the second circle is the second triangle, made up of 3 lines connecting to the middle circle. These 2 triangles make up what is called a delta Y configuration in electrical terminology, and they store electricity in an electromagnetic field of inductance that expands like a balloon. This electrical configuration only happens when you have a 3-phase alternating current circuit. Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3. Let's put this thing in motion. Like a motor, the flow of current induced a circular magnetic field. These 3 lines caused a circular vortex over the entire region that drew current towards the ground at hypersonic speed. When I say ground, I mean not just the physical ground of the Earth, which caused the mountains to be formed in successive shock waves, but the electrical ground of the planet's negatively charged core. Now this next part's going to be a little bit unusual because I'm going to show you something very recent that proves that the electrical circuit, that is the flow of current and the connection to the global ground, is still in place. This image here is of the satellite over the Pacific Ocean on January 15th of 2022. On that day, the Hunga Tonga volcano erupted at sunset. Now, what's interesting about this is that you can see in the middle of the Pacific a clear formation of a triangle. The delta of the Alaskan pyramid is connected electrically to the delta of the Polynesian triangle. They're electrically part of the same circuit. In fact, the Polynesian triangle feeds into the electrical component of the Alaskan pyramid's delta Y. And so this is why we know that there's one large electrical circuit going on, and that the placement of the pyramid is very specific. And that is because there's a circuit and there's a connection to the global neutral point. If you are sufficiently convinced there is an electrical circuit and a reason for the pyramid to be right where it is, then we can talk about what it does and how it suppresses consciousness. Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonald and scientist Itzhak Bentov wrote a paper in 1983 for the U.S. Army Special Operations Group out of Fort Meade, Maryland, called The Analysis and Assessment of the Gateway Process, which is one of, if not my top recommend read. In the paper, they argue that our brain has a natural resonance, or rate of microvibration, and that our body, quote, functions as a tuned vibrational system, which transfers energy in a range of between 6.8 and 7.5 hertz into the Earth's ionosphere cavity, which itself resonates at about 7 to 7.5 hertz. Of this process, Bentov states, quote, this is occurring at a very long wavelength of about 40,000 kilometers, the perimeter of the Earth. In other words, the signal from the movement of our bodies will travel around the world in about 1/7 of a second through the electrostatic field in which we are all embedded. Such a long wavelength knows no obstacles, and its strength does not attenuate much over large distances. Naturally, it will go through just about anything: concrete, water, and the fields making up our bodies. It is the ideal medium for conveying the telepathic signal. The pyramid underground in Alaska is not broadcasting up. It's broadcasting down, sending a static field along the neutral connection, which is then causing a suppression of the interconnected nature of our consciousness. Why do we feel so divided if Bentov says we're so connected? The human experience is being suppressed. What might it look like if our experience was being suppressed? It would look like being cold and callous. We would see division when there should be unification. We would seek darkness when we should attempt to shed light. So how do you turn the pyramid off? The pyramid in Alaska, like the pyramid in Giza, has to have a capstone, which is the top node of the delta Y. You have to have one of these nodes on the top. Ingos Account, the famous psychic from the Stanford Research Institute, who worked with Hal Puthoff, tells the most interesting story about a trip to Alaska and a red triangle that appeared out of nowhere. What else is a pyramid than a set of triangles? Here's Ingos' account.
My eyeballs rolled around, trying to perceive what had begun. I couldn't see anything unusual at all, save for what appeared to be some gray fog forming up in the direction of the lake. I thought it was just morning fog coming up. This fog continued forming for about 5 minutes, and suddenly I saw what had begun, for in a moment's eye flicker the gray fog changed, first into luminous neon blue, and then into angry purple. At that point, Axel and one of the twins put a firm hand on each of my shoulders, and it was a good thing they did. A network of purple, red, and yellow lightning bolts shot in all crazy directions through the cloud, and I would have jumped up if not held down. And then there it was, somewhat transparent at first, but in the next second, as if fading up, like the movie term, out of nowhere, there it was, solidly visible over the lake whose reflecting waters I could now clearly see, and it was getting bigger. I don't really know what I had expected, but I had assumed that what I would see, if anything, would be something like a flying saucer. No chance of a saucer here, baby, because it was triangular, and its top angles sort of inverted in pulses, so that overall it appeared to be diamond-shaped. At that moment, in my astonishment, we could hear a wind coming, and it moved past us like a tangible magnetic field. rustling the pine trees around us so much that some cones and branches fell on us. The two firm hands on my shoulders tightened, warning me not to move in pure physical reaction. At the same time, ruby-red laser-like beams began shooting out of the thing, which incredibly was now growing even more in size, while still stationary in its original position over the lake. One of the twins now talked softly, although the sound of his voice was like thunder to me. "Shit, they're enveloping the area. They're going to spot us." I had no time to wonder about what he meant. Indeed, some of the laser-red beams had begun blasting pine trees, of all things. At the same time, the thing had now increased its size to what may have been about 90 feet wide. The whole of this so far had been accomplished in complete silence, and even the electric bolts had not crackled. The blasting of the trees, though, was now audible, while at the same time I could begin to hear low-frequency pulsations. "They're blasting deer or porcupines or something in the forest," Axel explained softly in a calm but tense stage whisper. "The beams sense biological body heat, and they're sure to hone in on us." At that moment, the two hands tightened on my shoulders, and I was dragged and practically thrown back down into the arroyo. There was a terrific pop where we had been, and some large branches of nearby pines cascaded down on us. That was my last sight of the triangular thing. But in that last moment, I could see the water of the lake surging upward like a waterfall, going upward, as if being sucked into the machine.
How do you turn it off? Ingos' story has all the hallmarks of a timed event. They arrived when they knew something was going to happen. Tom DeLonge has mentioned more than once that there was a nuclear detonation over the Pacific Ocean during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so I went and looked for the detonations during that year, and lo and behold, I found this one right here. This one just happens to be at just the right place in the Delta Y. Did someone detonate a nuke over the Polynesian Triangle to avert war in 1962 by disrupting the power of the pyramid? And if so, what were the repercussions? It may have been done by accident. It may have been done by design. But if it was done by design, then whose design? Personally, I think the better question is, would they drop another nuke like that again? And if so, when the triangle pops up, what exactly is your plan? Because that triangle is the real machine of the machine. And it may be very simple to shut it off. Don't forget to leave me your thoughts in the comments down below and share this video. Peace.
And I am Iron Man.